Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
Oh, are you muted? You're muted. Sorry.
Oh, hey, good afternoon. I think that's been happening to me. It happened to me Wednesday as well. I think StreamYard changed some auto muting thing, but whatever. So it's another Thursday. It's another 3 p.m. Eastern. That means it's another DENDAO call. We were out last week, postponed to this week. So we'll touch on both of those agendas. And I think most of it today is pretty straightforward. And so let's go through it. If anybody wants to join, there is a link in the DENDAO layer on the post that says July 13th DENDAO call. And if you scroll down to the agenda, there's a StreamYard link and you can join the call there if you want to. Otherwise, just chime in and chat or leave a reply where the rest of the replies currently are. So the first thing on the agenda is that July 2023 LCP commitment phase has started. That means you can go vote on layers. So let's look at those and see where we are. We've got, and I am 4IAM is joining us, it looks like. So cool. Hey, what's up, sir? We're just going through the agenda real quick and checking out the layers we got here.
Hello. Long time no see. It's good.
Yeah, been a while. So by lore count, ignoring unique voters, it looks like animals is in a substantial lead for this month, the number one spot there. Followed not even closely at all by DeFi and quantum computers. If we switch over to unique voters, we've got a little bit less of a lead, but social influencers, vegan, and animals in third place there.
Interesting.
I don't know if we have any social influencers. I know that some people were dubbed social influencers. I know there was a chat room that I was voluntold into. On Telegram, you can just like add people to communities without asking them. So I don't know if there's a definition for who that is, but that is the category. We'll figure it out. I guess we could read the description. That's where you read to find out if you're unsure, which is what I was doing. So let's read it. Unique articles that cover different aspects of Dragon Chain and its capabilities, products for enterprise clients, and successful influencer posts. This, you know what this probably is? This is probably a competing layer for the official Dragon Chain layer, the business layer. Or not a competing layer, but maybe a complementary or a sister layer or something like that. I bet that's how it's probably
maybe more independent or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Cool. So that was proposed by Jared.
How long ago?
Let's see. That was proposed in 21. September 2021. Yep. Different times. Currently in lead by unique voters, though. And then lore-wise, Animals was proposed in 2021 also in November by Aladita.
Nice.
Pardon the
I'm
dog
pushing
whining
for,
trying to get out right
I'm pushing for 2024 elections.
now. Yeah. So let's see what we got.
Little
Is that?
junkie that I am.
Is that one? Is that in there? Is that another
Yeah,
one?
and the
I
lore
think it
is
is.
like number 5. Go up.
Ooh,
Oh, is it?
It's number 5.
Oh
in
yeah,
the
right
lore.
there.
I had not seen that.
That's one. That is one.
I'll get it
From
on.
I Am for I Am, proposed in. Yep, you proposed that one 3/9/23.
That's a while ago still. That was
Charlie, come on. Sorry,
a while ago.
dogs dueling over the door right now.
Election lair.
Yeah,
See,
so
I
that's
have
interesting.
0 committed to that, so I'm gonna make it a 14. Still, and what is it? 817. Wow, we're still quite a ways away from
817,000. Yep.
top, right?
Yeah.
So there's the next 4, almost 5 days we have to vote on that. So get in there, get your lore in, use some of that lore that's been. If you've been participating, you'll have lore basically to commit to that. All right,
I'll have
so
to get in and get some of that and see what.
that's the main thing we wanted to highlight before we go to the community input. I just want to glance at last week's agenda since we had to postpone it. So last week was the proposal phase. Same thing, except the proposal phase was last week. Now, last week there was, I guess I'll go in order since I'm already over here. Last week there was a question from Durox, which if you go in and read, there's extensive conversation in there about that question. I got into a mood and decided, you know what, let me just keep typing. So I wrote a bunch and hopefully it's understandable. You said it was pretty clear. So I'm glad that got across pretty well. The question there is related to a question in today's post as well, but it's, do we have tools to discover if anything fishy is going on? Data harvesting, mate voting, stuff like that. So short answer is yes, they're imperfect, but they exist. And also not all of that stuff is necessarily malicious. And that's just a short answer I'm going to give right now because there's an in-depth answer below that. In addition to that, there was a question about, and Joe, you mentioned that eventually we'd like to open up the database for anyone to inspect so they can find their own, even design their own algorithm or way or method of detecting stuff like that, which I think is something to work towards for sure. It should be a goal. I like it.
Can I make a comment to Joe's comment?
Yeah.
And I think it's just brief. A leaderboard that shows the winner of the day, shall we say, for the most MTR mind, could help with that.
Yeah, top 10.
And that would be a simplistic way rather than digging out all of the tools and everything that who is giving what to whom as far as energy.
I completely agree with that. And in fact, now we haven't the leaderboard got some initial work, but as a lot of things are on hold right now, it hasn't been finished. But that was part of that conversation too, which is that the leaderboard really does also serve as this visibility, this transparency. Anybody can look at it to see, wait a minute, this, like, I'm on Den all the time and I don't think this looks right. Can start pointing stuff out,
Yep,
so that's a very, very good observation.
And by the way, the way that the metrics site is, it's I don't know what you call it, but it's a structured pages set. So all we have to do, I believe all we have to do is have a query or a what would end up being like a materialized table or a view that it could pull from. So that's what we're looking at is it would be, I think, the materialized view, because the way that Den's chain is that everything is on chain, but you also have to the way that the metrics page currently is recalculating everything. And so you have to write
you have to write a little bit more to get things that that you might think is maybe just a data point to pull. You actually have to calculate that data point based on the activity to reproduce the number, to make it look like, oh, here's the actual number you want represented.
And to be transparent down to that level too. I think we made an implementation, not necessarily as a mistake, but we took one path that now I kind of wish we'd gone the other way, and we still might pull back and go that way. That essentially, when you vote energy right now, it takes, if you look at the white paper, it takes all of the I think it's what 80% goes to the content, and then if it's a reply and all of that stuff, and then a portion of it goes to the lot holders in that layer, and so on as energy. And so when it goes through and calculates everything at mine time, it essentially rolls through those and knows, okay, you got this much energy from all these sources. I almost think it would be better if we were just tracking, and maybe we could do this as well as the other, but if we just said, look, I am Brian, put 5 energy on this piece of content, and it stores that, and then after the fact it can go through and say, okay, 5 on that means this.
That's basically what it does though already. Like the individual energy, so that's what is on chain, is the individual energy applied to each piece of content. And if it is a reply, 20% of it goes to the post. And that's how you get, if you ever look at your payouts and you see like a fraction of energy applied, because that's been a question before, that's why. If you see like 0.8 energy, that means it was a reply to content, because 20% of that went to parent content, that kind of thing. Anyway, all that is just to say that what we would, and I think it's fine, we just have to create what Joe just mentioned, which is a materialized view, which is an efficient way of creating a virtual representation of what we really want to show in the leaderboard.
And are we talking like top 10, top 20, top 100?
Yeah, top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10 for now.
Some of that I played with already in the past. We've seen, I posted some examples of what that might look like. So some of them we can use, but really a daily updating one that auto updates that is in the metrics page.
Yeah, and the metrics page, if we can, and I've not myself built one of the pages where you map it to that, but it's essentially kind of very straightforward approach. It just knows, I'm just going to get this data and I'm going to assemble it in a table, and that's it.
It would be, it would be, again, part of the API publication process that we talked about. It would be creating an API call for the new front end that said, okay, look for all this data. Because what we have to do is you can't just give, you can, but realistically and morally, we don't want to give every on-chain data point, like open it up for everyone to see, because it is a hybrid system where some of it's private and some of it's not, and that kind of thing, right? So what we create is an API that you can hit and says, okay, give me this data, and it allows people to pull the data that is sanitized and that is not dangerous to share to anybody without having access to all the innards and that kind of thing. So that kind of system, that's what we want. Ultimately, that's what we want. We don't have that now, and I don't know. That's probably related.
Well, we're going to go into his other post that was good too.
So the fraud market, Joe, can probably go ahead and assume that you're in favor of this. Anywhere there's like a bounty system or a marketplace applied as a solution to a problem, I think that you're all for. You've sold me on that. I came into Den not understanding marketplaces and bounty systems as well as I do today, and so I think that's kind of the behavior-based approach that we should take. Give people rewards for finding it.
I don't know what anybody else thinks. I think a very workable way would be to take a portion out of the daily mining and just build a pool. So keep getting bigger. Now, I don't know if that will be totally fair, because if you just happen to time it right, even though it's not as big of a hole that you report, that maybe it might not be a perfect system. So something like that. It could be possible, right? So
Yeah, you could do that, or you could take a portion of the energy applied and apply that energy as part of the mining energy that goes to the pool. You could approach it a couple of ways, I guess.
true. Yep. Yep.
I am for AM brought up a good point about there being, and this is something I want to lean on into today. This is still last week's agenda. I want to lean on this a little bit in response to something that is in today's agenda as well. But you point out there's a limited number of users right now. And that should just be taken into consideration whenever you're thinking about, all of these different dynamics that we're seeing. Maybe as a problem on a small scale, it won't be a problem on a large scale. Economically, same thing. You see how that scales with the scarcity model. Might not be a problem at scale so much as it is at a small scale.
Mm-hmm.
And Durux rightly says that a lot of people get turned off because they can't make a lot of money on Den. That there used to be a lot more activity on Den whenever there was a lot more money to be made. And we've definitely seen across the whole crypto sphere, I guess, but on Den, definitely whenever there was less easy money, there's less activity on Den. And so I think Durux is seeing something that's a very real effect of
little pushback, if I could. I wouldn't say easy money. I would just say money, period.
Mm-hmm. Well,
we have some barriers. We have some barriers. The MTR value, which we're not going to go into here on the DENDAO, but the value of each MTR token is one barrier, and the second barrier, which I think is glaring, is of course the fees on Ethereum to pull it, to move it. So, so that works against the incentive to post and earn. But we're still young. We're still,
I guess when I say easy money, I meant more along the lines of that there was an easy, for example, Uniswap, right? There's an easy way to extract value and cash it out on the open market for a different unrelated token. There was an easy path to do that. Today, for example, the only reason I've gone out, and I've been saying this for a while and just haven't done it, but the only reason I had this massive amount of matter here is because I'm doing an analog U.S. Postal Service transaction for Matter, where I'm exchanging it for something else of different value in the mail, which is a much less easy way, of extracting value. So you can still do it. You just have to jump through a bunch more hoops and find somebody who wants Matter, who has a really fancy camera they want to send you, or something like that. So yeah. Another more cynical answer to that could be that we want people that want a platform that can be theirs and that they can post on and interact with as they would with linuxquestions.org or any other website forum where they would discuss topics and find value in that discussion itself. That's fundamentally or baseline what we need. So I don't know. If I was angrier, I could say, fuck them, fine, but I'm not angry. So I'm not happy to see people leave, but there are people who would say that, maybe it's best if somebody only wanted to hammer away at matter mining, that they're not here quite yet.
And we by the way, should have sometime, say an open discussion about behavior-based liquidity pools, because there are some questions I want to know what people, there are several ways to work them, but things like this, let's say the people who have liquidity on Uniswap, let's say they exit that and came over to here. So there's some liquidity in there to some Ethereum, let's say, or other tokens on the other side of Matter, let's say. Would people feel reasonable with known limits? Like, look, I have a stellar reputation, so when I trade Matter in, I get $2 per, but I can only trade in about $50 a day, right? Am I happy then, or would I rather have? Well, I can sell it at 2 cents, but I don't have any limits, right? at there are questions like that, because they're with that. The behavior side's simple because we've already kind of mastered it, and what we want to do is mirror the behavior into the economics, where right now the economics don't have any way to judge one person over another as to whether they're providing value to the network. This would end that ignorance of that pool, but the thing it wouldn't have is a venture capitalist's purse there that could go, we have millions, so yes, you can get $5 a pop, but it'll get drained in a month. That's the question I have. What would people be willing to say? Because not only would the price be a part of that, but so would the supply, right? Like, say the maximum reputation would get you a certain amount of availability to sell, and at a certain high price, and it would go down in some curve. And on the other side, you'd have the worst situation where you'd be better off going to Uniswap, because you're not going to, it's going to be you're going to get a lower price here than there. And then the other side of it would be the flip side. The people who want to buy it. If I have a stellar reputation and I'm going to increase my reputation by buying it, I want to buy it through this pool because my reputation is going to increase over here. I'm going to get a better price for what is available to sell, or sorry, to buy. I don't know. There's stuff there that is a little bit outside of my, I know it's what's needed. I just don't know what people will, pros and cons.
I look forward to us having that discussion down the road or later in a different format, and it can certainly be public, and would want it to be public. My shot from the hip and just thinking out loud is we are trying to prevent, like we saw in the game, the dump of
Axie.
Axie. Yeah, Axie Infinity. We don't want to see that dump. I get that. On the flip side, what we have going for us that Axie doesn't is we have the scarcity in the token.
Yeah.
And that scarcity can certainly drive value. And if that scarcity is driving the value up, then that is also driving the inputs in. So I'm reluctant to try to think of ways that we're altering free market economy here. But I'm just, like I said, I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. And I don't want it. I want it to be more free and natural, and rather than limited. But I fear that Axie Infinity scenario.
Yeah, I think both exist at the same time in this scenario: free market, pure free market, as well as whatever sort of like reputation-based version that we would come up with at the same time. I think that two things. One, what we have to decide is, hey, we have like a group of people here that have a common interest of, we want to build a better thing for us to all play with. How do we do that to where we think it's all fair to each other? It gives us the mechanics that we all want personally, and how does that look? So we can do whatever we want with that within reason. Also, with resources, something Axie had, maybe still has, that we don't, is this ability or willingness to shovel money in to prop up the token economy. So at a loss every day for a long period of time, with the goal, with sort of the VC approach goal of, okay, it's almost fake it till you make it, where, okay, as long as we can like keep it as exciting for a while, eventually people will like it and they'll stay, and they'll actually get a natural balanced economy going, and then we can turn off that artificial faucet, and it'll just, the snowball will keep rolling all by itself, and we'll make our money back that we shoveled in the beginning, and hopefully, cross your fingers, hey, that's great. So we didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like an advertising budget a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right. The artificial faucet is actually our scarcity principle.
Well, in this specific case, I'm talking about the ability for someone to swap Axie coins for Ethereum or Bitcoin or
Right.
whatever, that kind of
Right.
thing, where they were literally putting in their own liquidity, saying, "Yeah, we'll buy it from you. Just sure, just to give you to make sure we don't lose anybody. We'll buy it from you. Fine." That's not actually bringing real value to it. It's bringing
No.
the short term real value to it until
Right.
like that snowball doesn't roll.
It's an
And
artificial pump. It's an artificial pump in its
Yes.
value.
Yeah.
Versus
And
cold start problem, right?
I've been surprised for almost the entirety of my involvement in the blockchain crypto world with the lack of, how do I say this, understanding of supply. And it's just kind of, and it's because people are used to dollars and stuff, I guess. I don't know. But even the guys that say, oh, the supply's too high, they don't, a lot of times, not everybody, of course, but I'm just surprised that I guess generally, like, it's more of a, more of the community doesn't understand. It's like, oh, that's a really low supply, so it's I can't compare it one to one, right? So
the reality of that, even the way that I think about that is like, okay, yeah, the supply that matters when you're talking about what does it mean to have a whole token, but the reality of it is there's 18 fucking decimal places. So it's going to play out however it plays out. Sure, you got to have more or less tokens to equal the same.
Just orders of
To equal the
magnitude.
same,
But that's still just saying we all have 18 orders of magnitude. I'm talking comparatively
to other. Oh yeah.
Pumping out more and more. And what's its price right now?
Right.
You're talking about the lack of control on supply inflation,
or
frankly,
or meme coins with 4 trillion in
no
supply.
joke. Well, and frankly, you know what? And I think you could point to Ethereum, which has a legitimate utility, right? Whether or not anything else, it does have a legitimate utility. When we use it, lots of other groups use it. And meme coins, what is the common denominator? It is network effect. It is essentially how much is this thing shilled is what dictates.
I'll backtrack from what I was saying. I didn't understand completely. So yeah, whenever you're comparing it to Doge is a great example because it was intentionally engineered to have an absurdly enormous supply, right? It was, the whole point was because wouldn't it be funny if there was just billions of them that are minted every minute? That's how it works. So the price point on that, you would have to, if you wanted to buy 10% of the Dogecoin supply, it's a lot of fucking money. If you wanted to buy 100% of the Matter tokens, you fucking could. You know what I mean? Because the way that they're priced on the open market by people who arbitrarily assign values based on memes and people talking in chat rooms and stuff without actually any more than that, it's gotten this value that the supply versus the relative token value would matter. You could buy a lot of them for a little bit. You couldn't do that with other ones because the supply is so different.
Right.
But it stretches however it stretches. I think you were talking, what if there was 1 million users, it'd be like 30 tokens per person kind of thing. Like that's it.
Was that who made that post? Was that
it was Derox, wasn't it?
Was it Derox?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
if there were 1 million users, it's 32, and it's 32 not right now. It's 32 in 85 years.
Right.
It's like it's extremely low right now
because they're not going to be minted very quickly. 1,000 a day. So
continuing on.
It's frustrating that all pictures get more energy and attention than long thought-provoking posts. But that's kind of who's here. So I would say that maybe we haven't attracted long thought-provoking post appreciators.
And that's exactly what I said there in the third paragraph. The more numbers we have subscribers that like cat videos or informative seekers will win it today.
You can kind of look at this as like, football teams or something. It's like, man, there's so many Gator fans here. What the fuck? Well, go get the Raiders, man. Tell them to come hang out, kind of thing. So, all right. So with that, there is a post from Derox about basically a handful of denizens who seem to be getting a lot of energy applied to their posts, lots and lots and lots of energy applied, as well as looks like he's done some research on with a chat GPT detector. Basically, did you write this with chat GPT, which I think is interesting. And yeah, there seems to be a handful of people that get a butt ton of energy, and a lot of it is questionably what's the question? That
I
it's not
called
original.
it upvoting
Brigading, barraging,
brigading, upvote brigading. And that's what it appears. He's making a strong case that that's what's happening.
Now, we do have new stuff in to protect against that, so we can't judge purely on the energy, correct?
Correct. I was going to say that. So I have not, but I will look into these specific accounts just to see if I can see. I want to see if what we currently have in place is detecting this, because it should. And because what's going to happen is, if there is something going on where there is leniency in this system, because we do want people creating content, and we're not even against AI producing content, so long as it is reasonably accepted by the community as something that they want to see. Where that goes away or out the window is that if it is a coordinated handful of people who are only voting on each other, maybe voting everybody else down. That kind of thing.
Kind of like what Google and others do with bot detection. When you click that, they like say they can put a button up there, and based upon where you click it, they can pretty quickly determine if it's the distribution is natural or not, right? Like if a lot of bots are clicking it, it's going to be very regular. It was like there's stochastic stuff they do. It's kind of like that in terms of yes, you might get one person that always votes up their buddy that they follow, and they like that content. But if they're only upvoting that, and if a whole bunch of other people are only the same similar, there's more likelihood that it's a bot.
So we do not have anything that's looking for AI generated content. That's not a bad idea to give it an AI. Like, honestly, just integrating a meter on every post where it's like, oh, what's the likelihood? That's fine.
If it's a free engine. If it's a free engine, then
if it's a free engine, If it's not a like, pay for this many API calls kind of engine kind of thing.
But they're I mean, when you look at that, they're all around 30,000. 36,000, 30,000 over and over and over and over.
Yep.
It kind of says like, okay, I got 30,000 matter or energy. And boom, every day I'm going to hit this one.
Yeah. So what I would be interested to see is how much matter they're actually making, because the way that the system works right now is, if we're not detecting it properly, then it's going to be probably more matter than they should reasonably be earning if it is not content that is like, if it's spam's pretty obvious, but there's a gray area between spam and what I would call low effort shit posting, right? What's colloquially known as shit posting, I guess, right? But there is a reputation system that effectively makes energy more or less weighted based on your reputation, and the more times and the more how do I explain it? So like, if you're detected 10 times for behavior that is known manipulative behavior, versus if you're detected one time for the same kind of thing, you're actually attenuated energy wise on how much your energy is worth whenever it gets applied. So it could actually be that whoever is applying 30,000 energy, there's not actually being an effective 35,000 energy being applied to the post. Even though they're spending it, it may only get applied as 0.1% or 1% or 5 or 30%, depending on how often they're hitting this sort of matchmaking system where it's like, oh, this is behavior we've seen in the past and it's not wanted. Now, I don't know. I should have looked into it ahead of this meeting, but I don't know if that's happening. But But
It appears. It appears so.
It appears that there's a pattern. So I'll have to look into it and see.
And the leaderboard would kind of help with that too.
Yep, it would.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it would be matter based, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
A matter-based top 10 earners.
Oh, you
Yeah.
could even have a feature of the leaderboard that could be its matter to energy accumulation ratio, right? That you would know, oh, this person's getting a crap load of energy, but they're also, but their matter doesn't match up. They're like in that mix.
Yeah, you're spending if you spend the equal, like a normalized measure of energy expenditure versus the matter earned from it. Well, that's also depending on consensus and a lot of other things. That could be done, but it'd be a little bit harder.
But still, even in that case, it's interesting. It's like a lot of people put energy into this person who is in 8th place, but he's not getting as much. He's not as efficient, is what it would essentially be. It's like what's the efficiency of your consensus? Essentially how heavily is the consensus mapping on this account, right? I don't know. That could be really interesting. But by the way, guys, you see that I have this amazing, if I turn exactly the right way, I have this great motion blur coming off my headset, right? It's like, oh, if I just stay here, it's like, looks like I just swung in.
On the wall. So in short, yes, we should definitely look into making sure and maybe even updating based on, here's what's cool is if I go in here or if whoever, Joe or Andrew or whoever, there's a handful of people that can validate this and see what's going on. We go in here and we see that actually there is something going on. No, our existing system isn't catching it. We can then use the on-chain behavioral data to see what they were doing exactly as a pattern, as a behavior pattern, and say, oh, they were doing this, which we weren't catching. Well, let's take that, plug it, add it to update our system, and now it looks for that.
Yeah, because at some point in time, it wouldn't be that hard to detect, but to code it, it's not the simplest thing because there's time involved. But imagine anybody who's doing this is signing in to this account, doing the thing, and then this account, it's like they're going down the list of all of their bot accounts and voting on that.
Or it's actually pretty
they're
easy.
Just calling their buddy or their brother or sister or whatever and say, hey, okay, hit this one.
Yeah, or they're in a Telegram chat room and they're saying, all right, here's the post we're focusing on today. That kind of thing. So it's actually pretty straightforward and it's not too hard to update I'll call it an algorithm, I guess, that detects this kind of stuff, because the bigger hurdle was getting it in place in the first place. So now we can add to it where we need it. And I wanted to say that because I want to say thank you to Derox, because this is exactly the kind of thing we need. So we can say, oh, hey, thanks for bringing that up. It slipped through, but now we can see the behavior patterns and we can plug it in. We can update our algorithm.
And late in the day I wanted to give him a lot more energy, but late in the day I had already spent most of mine, and so I tipped him. 10 matter for this post.
Cool. Nice, good. I will say that the AI thing I'm much less concerned about. It's one thing to put low effort posts or to put AI generated stuff on there. It's another thing entirely to coordinate a manipulation or something like that.
I was philosophically, AI generated content might be well appreciated by a community, right? So. No reason to say. Now, I wanted to ask. We have that. I can't remember what we called it, but it's an honorary membership in the DENDAO founders. Has Dayrox been nominated for that?
I don't think so. No.
We can look at that. Well, I'll nominate him for that if he hasn't, and then we can all vote on that too. That'd be cool. Because he's been.
Am I a founder?
I think you have. Looking.
You have at least one where you can. You have at least the ability to post a GI, which means yes, you are.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow.
So,
I feel special today.
You should always feel special.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
Well done, Derox.
Yeah, that was
all
good.
right.
That's again, and he's been posting a whole bunch of good stuff. There's like, oh, that's really.
I just gave him 69 more matter, so he's done a lot of work on that. So very happy to. Cool. Tools for scanning. Yeah, this would be right in line with what Joe proposed or mentioned on last week's agenda page, where there should be a way for the database to be relatively open and transparent to where anybody can look at it themselves for this exact reason, to say, hey, something's up here, let's check it out. Maybe we need to retool for it.
Yeah.
Offshoring. So this will probably be the last thing that we hit. Yeah, last discussion point we hit. Interesting today with the Ripple case and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Who bought Ripple yesterday?
Yeah. Good timing.
I know who, Gensler.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No doubt.
Genzel's got a bunch of it, yeah.
And the entire Chinese Communist Party as well.
So I laid out a potential path to full decentralization here as I see it. There's different ways to do it, and different people would have different opinions on how that should work.
Nice.
But this is my idea of how it could work without changing anything, right? Without changing much anyway, without having to retool and redesign the system from the ground up. How could we take what exists today in its hybrid form and decentralize as much as possible all of the centralized points that are part of that hybrid system? And what that would ultimately look like is, depending on your DNS needs, that's a question as far as like access to it. But you can use something like storage for data hosting, and that's a decentralized crypto project, which means DENDAO would have to hold storage tokens in their treasury to pay the bill on that. You can use something like Flux, where they have decentralized actual compute server hosting, but you then need to add Flux to your DENDAO treasury to be able to pay the bills, the hosting bills on that. You can use Oxen and LokiNet to give network access and DNS, to resolve the host over LokiNet. But then you're making a situation to where, okay, you can't access it from the regular internet. So then you would need something that can resolve DNS, Den.Social, but also hit the same server over on Flux that is on LokiNet. And then you also have the situation where if you access it from LokiNet, they can't, unless they have a exit node configured, they can't see the stuff that's on ClearNet, which maybe not is even a problem at all, but worth mentioning. So all of that stuff actually exists today, which is the cool thing. And Dragon Chain is specifically designed for things like taking all this stuff that exists and gluing it together in a scalable, interoperable way to make one system that uses all these different parts. So I think this is like pretty close to the way that I would do it if we were going to decentralize it, completely decentralize it. There's questions on like, how do you do, we would need more robust multi-sig for all this kind of stuff. There's like administrative like things. How do you organize among DENDAO, decentralization of some of the control points and things like that. But, and especially the sensitive data, right? That's the other question, is some of the hybrid systems are in place because it's sensitive business data or personal information, someone's email address that they signed up with. You don't want to expose that. So how do you still safeguard on that? But ultimately, yeah, there's a way to do it. The other way to do it would be to rewrite everything and put it on, all in a different back end capacity altogether, which is a whole nother animal. So
the other side of it too is some of the stuff that, like we have, I can't remember if it's approved or not, but we wanted to make the consensus model visible, or the consensus results.
The data,
we don't want to make it available in flight. That is, we don't want you looking at, oh, I can see everybody's voting for this, so I'm going to vote for it.
Yeah, in fact, sorry to yell at you just there. This exact thing here that we were just talking about.
Yeah,
you would be able to unroll this consensus, these votes, and literally see who's voting. And if you see the same people voting for the same people over and over again, either that's a YouTube personality with a bunch of followers who are here naturally and they're voting for their favorite YouTuber, which honestly, fine. Give them all the matter. Keep your people here, right? But if it's not that case and it's something else where they're not bringing value to DEN and all they're doing is a coordinated harvesting, then that's something we don't necessarily want, right? Because you could naturally get this result that you're seeing right here, where somebody has an disproportionate amount of like, why do they can just say
And-
hello and they'll get 100,000 energy. What
And-
the hell?
And
If
I'll
that
say,
person is somebody who is bringing people in hordes into Den, and all
Right.
those people only like that one person, they're here for them, and so they're putting all their energy on them.
Yep.
That's probably kind of okay, because we're getting all of that adoption in exchange for it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then it's just a competition of like, all right, well, who else is
And
going to do that?
it's
And it should
something that
balance out eventually.
Yep, and something, and because of that, something that we can consider, even in the more near term, if it was wanted, is, and there's some risk to it, but to say after, how do I say this? After the window, and you have to think about it. It's not just the mining window, because you might have something that is still in its early consensus period. So you would have to say, how often do you do it? Or maybe you cut out anything in the last part of the day before that in period, and you get it the next day. But it wouldn't be very hard at all to come up with, depending on if we decide what that model is, to spit out a data dump every night that somebody could on their own import into a database or a spreadsheet and do their own analysis. And it'd be ugly, but it'd be everything. We could do that pretty quickly.
That's kind of like a nightly build on GitHub or something, where somebody can take it and analyze it and do what they want. Yeah.
You just wouldn't be able to see stuff that's happening right now, because we don't want to affect the market of that consensus. We want you to really vote on, which is the same reason, by the way, that only the energy magnitude shows now. It doesn't show positive or negative, because that way you don't know which way it's going, right? A lot of people could have voted up when you're thinking it's down, and that's how you have to make your signal, right? So,
I have three
go ahead.
comments about that. I had to jot them down, but first thing I want to mention is, Joe, I like your mustache, and since all three of us have the kind of facial hair,
very good.
Hair club
Second
for
item.
denizens.
Second item, if you
For
could
Den.
go back to my post just before yours, Dave.
Yeah.
About you're giving the examples of how we would decentralize. There
Yeah,
you
I
go.
wanted to. Yeah,
Continuation. Now, this
but
is
the question
bringing
of why, right?
Yeah, more the reason why, and the reason why for decentralization, and is this a better way to strike and better way to go about the whole idea, rather than say chase our tails as a DENDAO going offshore, because essentially that's what this would do.
Yeah.
Unless there was some, and then if we did go offshore and we ended up landing in a particular location, and then the rules and the laws that change, then we're just chasing our tails again, and we're in a kind of an endless fight, drawing money and resources away. So the decentralization, it was kind of my aha moment. I thought this, actually that might be the priority.
Yeah, and Dave, because you've looked at, in fact, we've talked to a couple of systems. I know, Dave, I think you have more experience even with either looking at or running those systems where people can basically offload. If we're running, and we have, by the way, with Den and with Dragon Chain, we have massively reduced the footprint of the blockchain nodes and the Den nodes. So we're running it on a much smaller scale than we were 2 years ago. And so it would be less expensive to do that. I don't know what the pricing is. I don't know what the reliability is. I don't know what the
so the redundancy would be important too.
Here's what's fascinating. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, because I could. But what's fascinating to me is this. It's a conceptual shift from how to keep a service alive, right? From battery backups, maybe having a failover system that's in a different region, and having these systems, these singular systems, bulletproof and just really reliable and that kind of thing. And this really, really hardcore emphasis on reliable infrastructure, to this push towards decentralization, where now you have to assume, well, for one, you have no control over the hardware. You don't know who's running it. You don't know if they have a battery backup, and you don't know if somebody's going to crash into the telephone pole out front and bring the damn system down, right?
Mhm.
So you have to now design in a completely different way, where you have to assume, yes, a substantial amount of the infrastructure at any given time is going to randomly be offline. So you have to build a system where, like what Flux does, is they use Docker and Kubernetes to build a system that if you host on Flux, if you run on Flux, as they say, what you're doing, let's say it's a Minecraft server. One of their first big demos was a Minecraft server running on Flux. You have a network of service nodes, just like Oxen, just like Dragon Chain, just like Bitcoin, where people have nodes on the network and you got a machine running. Well, for them, that machine has to have a certain amount of bandwidth, internet connectivity, a certain amount of solid state, like fast hard drive access, certain amount of memory, and a certain number of cores for your CPU processor, right? And in that container, you're going to run arbitrary Docker containers that contains a customer's server. And because you are an unknown anonymous person, you then have to assume that, like, okay, I might go away. The customer wants their service, their app, to be up all the time. So you take that Docker container and you replicate it 5 times in different regions around the world, and you have 5 copies of the same server, all synchronizing with each other at all the time, running in real time. If any one of those goes offline, another one automatically spins up on somebody else's server who is a Flux miner, right? This is where miners are computing more than just money with Bitcoin. They're actually providing a service to the network, right? So your mining node is a compute node that people can host Docker containers on. And the network dynamically makes sure that there's always 5 Docker containers that are all replicating with each other, all running around the world at the same time. And anytime 1 or 2 or 3 goes offline, it spins up enough on somebody else's mining machine. You don't know what's running on there. You're just running a mining machine. It spins up another one somewhere to compensate. So you have a system of continuous failover. And because of that, it's always available and it's always alive, because it's always just like, oh, okay, like a Hydra, it's popping up here, it's hopping up there every time you chop one off, that kind of thing. And that's what Flux has figured out how to do. And so anything that you can run in a Docker container, like a Dragon Chain node, for example, can be deployed on that infrastructure. You just have to pay in Flux instead of dollars. So,
I like the idea. I mean, as much as I wanted to, on behalf of DENDAO, go to the Bahamas and St. Kitts and Nevis and then drag my wife reluctantly to El Salvador to see about, maybe setting up an offshore DENDAO kind of thing. Even though she didn't want to go to El Salvador. In all seriousness, though, I really think that this is probably a better solution. It doesn't provide us, shall we say, more of a bank account or whatever, or an entity definition per se in the world at a particular location, but it is more in line with the vision of, say, Satoshi.
It is, yeah. You would need more anonymity,
right? But more
in
importantly,
the DAO. I mean,
more importantly, from a philosophical standpoint, we're talking about decentralized systems and propagating them throughout society. And I, as a member, I would like us to go down that road and fund that type of energy and project, than be the same as everybody else and just spin up a bunch of servers around the world and or have a giant warehouse full of servers or whatever.
I think it's at least much more interesting to do it the brand new way that nobody's ever done before.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's trailblazing, right? We're being explorers.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah, you would need. I tend to agree with you with that. I like the quantum solution, and by quantum, I just mean it simultaneously doesn't exist anywhere, but also exists everywhere.
Yes,
is ubiquitous, but it is not anywhere. necessarily.
Which
I mean,
brings
it's-
up my third question was, because Dragon Chain is the engine,
Mhm.
is that the Achilles heel? Is that
Well-
where the government would strike? Like say that Australian bill goes into play, and now Australia doesn't know we're decentralized, but Australia says, I don't like what's being posted here on Den.Social. We got to do something about that.
Well, that's where I was going to say, like, you would need, if you're talking about, this is like, it's weird to talk about it this way, but this is really like nation state level. Like, how do you defend against a particular attack on a network? You would need more anonymity in DENDAO who control those systems, so that, because the realistically, like, we're all, talking remotely right now, but we're all in one country.
Right.
And so if anybody really wanted to shut something down, they could impose on the DAO, like you've seen already, DAOs being served by proposal, that way, that kind of thing.
And it would attract more, the DAO will attract more attention as more successful it is, and more
there is a question.
Revenue for the DAO, even though, shall we say, it's not profit. That even if it's all in crypto and it's paying in crypto for these services of a decentralization, because still there's salaries to be paid for maintenance and support.
Yeah, ultimately, that's the future I want to see, though, is to where everyone is educated and capable enough to be paid in crypto, and it's on them to convert it to whatever their local currency is.
Right. Exactly.
Or convince their landlord to
convince their landlord to take it, and their landlord can do whatever they want with it. That kind of thing. That's the long game. That's really the long game, is to just use better money.
And I think the majority of us that are active here in the DENDAO feel the same and want to work in that direction, that path, and put our efforts in that direction.
Yeah. I will say the that judgment today, give if assumptions are valid and we think that it is positive, like we think it is, actually is very helpful for more of those grand visions, because it's easier to see, if you're just a person who's using one of these, not just Den, any of these systems, it's easier to see you actually winning. It's easier to see you actually seeing success on the system, because you're not going to be flummoxed by some random, person at a desk in DC. It's a huge thing. So,
I couldn't agree more. It's celebrate today, but lock and load tomorrow.
Yeah, because I will tell you, yesterday, I'd gone from, I know our case is, in my opinion, of course, I'm not a lawyer, but even some of the lawyers have told me very, very strong, and has some very unique elements that the other cases don't have, that makes it even stronger. Philosophically, all the rest of it. But still, yesterday after that library stuff, and I'm just thinking, well, holy fuck, why did I even do this? And it's like, I'm looking at like financial ruin. I'm going to end up, but then I get to thinking as like, 4th of July, I remember all of the stories about how many revolutionaries died bankrupt, how many, lost all of their family. And you don't even know these names, right? And I'm thinking, okay, that's me. I'm going to lose fucking everything to these bastards. Maybe we'll win in the end, but I'm just thinking, why the fuck did I do this? I could have just, moved somewhere and led a decent life and relaxed, right? It's like, no, I have to fucking deal with this stuff, probably end up with stomach cancer or some shit because of these assholes. And then today I'm like, oh, okay, we can win this, right? So it's just like this weird thing.
In 24 hours, it's like, oh,
yeah.
Maybe there's we can do this. Maybe, I don't know. Because that's what
huge relief.
I still have, I printed it out. I'm going to go through it and get a glass of wine and just kind of page through it, go through it. So I have my hard copy now, and I'll do that tonight. But my takeaways from, what we talked about on Blockchain Roundtable today, basically, is that, we have to apparently worry less about the secondary markets, exchanges, paying people for services, which doesn't seem like something you should ever have to worry about. But, like if I want to pay my neighbor in eggs or chickens or something, like, fine, if they accept chickens, pay them in chickens. But now, because it's a different
Sure.
type of thing, you have to worry about, am I allowed to pay in donuts? What does the SEC think about screwdrivers? Like, there's less of that now. Now, there's going to be, I'm sure, an appeal. The SEC is going to want to say, all right, whatever. There's going to be, probably disambiguous. What's the word?
Disambiguation.
Yeah, disambiguation between the circuits, right? To where they have to get on the same page about stuff. So there's like a lot to do still, and a lot of stuff that's still uncertain. And even the stuff that's decided in this Ripple case today is still not certain. It has to be still argued. And okay, is it really, really true? Okay, I guess so. But that said, there's a lot more stuff I feel comfortable doing. Even today, I was talking to someone that I was talking to 3 weeks ago about launching a scientific journal that incentivized peer review, the peer review process.
Dude,
because
there is something out there. I heard about it a couple of months ago that was just getting started.
Great, yeah, and maybe there is. But the difference between that and then just today, I was talking to the same person about, like, you know what? Because back then I was like, yeah, just don't do your own token. You can use blockchain. You can do this. We can maybe do this and this. Just don't use your own token if it's in the U.S. Today, I'm like, oh, maybe you can actually do your own token, because now maybe you can pay people in a token. It seems like that's okay, as long as you don't do an investor round, as long as you don't actually sell securities. Which, sure, if somebody's actually selling securities, fine. They do the thing that the rule says you have to do. But if you're not, don't say they are just because you don't like them. So that second example seems to have won.
Let's say I have a research paper. I put it out there. I need it to be peer reviewed to get my grant money or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take and commit some of my grant money and buy some tokens to put extra bounty. Now, at the same time, you might have some research papers that don't have that grant money and don't have a bounty, but they're still going to be mining rewards. That's a beautiful system. And to say that those tokens are somehow securities when they're not ownership in the fucking platform.
You do the same thing with dollars, just less efficiently and less good, right? Less. It would just be harder to do it. But where you charge someone to submit a paper to your journal, you take a fraction of that fee that they submitted their paper with, you put it in a bounty to people who want to try to say, you're full of shit, and that's where your bounty system comes from, and you have this whole economy based on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of, one of the probably, how do I say, unrecognized in the general public reasons that they are coming after crypto so hard isn't just the bank. It's literally because people are getting educated as to how this. Wait, this value just springs out of the world. It's like, yes, we measure this. These things are minted, and you get this, and it's like, well, how's that possible, right?
Yeah. I have learned in the last 10 years, I have learned more about even macroeconomics. I didn't know who the fuck Keynes was before Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Yeah. I never studied economics until I started running some of these nodes and exploring how they work. And I was like, why is this way? And why does this matter? And why is this important? And then I take that same, I think a lot of people did this. They take what they learned with that and they compare it to the existing financial markets, and you're like, wait a minute, something I don't like over there.
Yesterday I'm at the grocery store after coffee with Den, and I'm getting my stuff, and the clerk starts looking at my shirt, and it was the history of money. And she says, what's that? I said, yeah, the history of money. She goes, that's cool. And I go, and guess what, money doesn't have to come from the government. And she went, wow. Yeah, exactly. I get to see those wheels turning and the smoke coming out of her ears. Like, whoa.
It actually didn't start with the government. They just kind of co-opted it.
Yeah,
we can go back anyway, or both can happen at the same time. It has to be.
To that, and that was my point to your point, Joe, is that people are waking up. There's alternatives to these centralized systems. It's a good thing. And then there's people like us that are like looking at, blazing a new trail that, hey, wait a minute, you mean social media doesn't have to be centralized? I can own my own data?
Holy crap.
I can own my own what? It can be,
and
it can be altered, it can be changed.
Yeah, and like Oren was talking about with his project, that that they're spinning up where, okay, well, if my data is going to be sold anyway, can I at least profit from it?
Yeah.
Like, can you pay me from what you're taking from me to sell that you're profiting on? You know, that kind of thing. So there's a whole thing happening for sure. We got to wrap. But I do like your suggestion of focusing on decentralization or prioritizing decentralization over redomiciling.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's becoming clearer that.
Darn, I wanted to go to El Salvador.
Still can,
and
still
not only
can.
clear, but also more and more feasible every day with the maturity. Like storage and flux were like a good idea a couple of years ago. Now they've sort of proven. You know, they're doing folding at home on Flux now.
Oh, that is awesome.
Where they're distributed. They're using these mining nodes, these service nodes, to compute protein folding to solve diseases and stuff like that.
I remember when storage and Syscoin started. I was I was all over that. Storage and Sys.
Yeah.
Sys. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Storage is actually a default option in FileZilla, the FTP software.
Oh.
It's native now. You can just choose storage as your location. I've seen file services like Mega Upload or something, but like somebody else's version of that, where they use storage as the back end. You pay them for access in Monero or whatever. They take care of using that to pay for their storage tokens. So you don't ever see any of that. And their back end, their storage medium is storage. It's whoever has extra hard drive space. So pretty cool stuff.
Cool. Hey, again, thanks, Dave, for looking up that data.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Yeah, and you're right. You nailed it. That's the search we needed. Yeah. So thanks.
Cool.
If you could do that and knock that out, it'd be great.
Good. Yep.
But
I'll do that.
Derox, again, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, double thanks. And actually, that's the two things I'll do. I'll finish up that for you, and then also look specifically at what Derox pulled up to see if there's anything that I can. I guess I'll either just say nope, it's already being caught, or actually thanks, we'll update so we can catch it.
Excellent. And I did tip him 250,000 lore also. So
far out. Well,
sure
we're in the commitment phase for July too. So far out.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right.
That's the kind of shit we want to incentivize. So that's perfect.
Yes. That's
what the tipping system is for, is to push. If you see unfair stuff, make it fair by tipping those who you see actually providing great content. Don't rely on just the, the algorithm's great and it's as fair as we can make it right now, and it'll get better and better. But also there is a tipping feature. So if you want to attract people for doing awesome stuff or keep them doing it, keep them motivated for doing it, tip them out. I tipped out Greg for giving us that timely SEC decision.
Oh, awesome.
So.
Yes.
Nice.
All right. We got to wrap it up. Thanks again.
Thanks,
we'll see you for next week's DENDAO call, and I'll be on and off of Den over the weekend too. Here's a song called Enter the Dragon from Y'all Weird.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, raw capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.